I know there are people who weren't able to make it today. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to be able to host a vendor event this fall. We did not think that was going to be possible, and we've been looking for a solution. So we're really excited that we were able to find that at the Power and Equipment Museum. For those who received our communication about the Craft Food and Wine Show that's typically at SUNY Potsdam or Clarkson, they are not permitting events on campus this fall. And quite frankly, I don't know how comfortable I would feel hosting an event indoors of that capacity. So we are excited to be able to host at the Power and Equipment Museum. Maggie, can you go to the next slide?
Did that work? I changed the slide.
What's that?
Did that work? I did change the slide.
Okay, yep. Yes, so for anyone who's not familiar with the Power and Equipment Museum, it's all an outdoor museum with a number of different outbuildings to kind of appreciate the heritage of power and equipment heritage of sorts. And it's a great venue, lots of parking, lots of outdoor space, and we do have access to power and things like that. And it's really centrally located at the crossroads, really, of Canton, Potsdam, Messina, Waddington, a lot of our major communities that love our show. So I just put the link to the registration there, and it's available if you go to slcchamber.org as well. We're sticking with the same great name, Craft Food and Wine, and just making sure people know it's in an open air market, that it is outside, that there will be plenty of fresh air and space available. All right, Maggie. So our goal today is just to go through some of the safety requirements and guidelines that we as organizers will be following, as well as for those of you as vendors. Some of you may have been participating in farmers markets this summer, and some may not have. So feel free, if any of you have already experienced things or seen things, to share in the chat box, and we'll have some time at the end to unmute and chat if you have any questions or other ideas for people. So our layout will be 10 feet apart. Vendors will be spaced 10 feet apart, not just 6, but 10, to make sure that there's enough room for the booth as well as customers to surround it. And we will be encouraging and insisting on people staying 6 feet apart, wearing masks, all of that, and we'll be laying out the property in that way. If you saw in the last email I sent out at the end of last week, there was a link to a safety plan. As the organizers, we're required to have a safety plan, and we have that prepared. And every vendor is also required to have a safety plan on site. That's just if Department of Health or someone comes to look, you want to have that on site. It's also just a good thing for liability. The safety plan is not too daunting, so don't worry about it. When we also received a great sample from our friends at the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and it comes from the Farmers Market Federation of New York. There's a link there, and there was a link in the email I sent out at the end of last week. And so I'm just going to go through that a little bit. Next slide. So this is what the reopening safety plan looks like. Again, this template is filled out for you, essentially. You just need to fill out your contact information at the top, and you just want to go through each section and edit things that don't apply to you, or customize them if they do apply to you. So again, this isn't even asking questions. This is giving you the answer, and then you just have to go through and customize, and you just need to speak to kind of what your plans are to keep your customers and your employees safe. Next slide. Additional just notes that are included on how you will have everyone wearing masks, and any other steps you're going to take to have contact-free if possible. Yes, face shields are allowed. That's considered a face covering. And just the different sanitary measures that you're going to take. So again, this is part of the safety plan template that we sent the link to, and we'll send that out again to you. Next slide. This is just a final piece where you just note who's kind of the safety officer, so if it's you, and then just make note that you're to be very careful about yourself and whoever else is working at your booth, and monitoring them before the event and during, to make sure they haven't had any symptoms or come into contact with someone who's had symptoms or tested positive or traveled outside of the area. Those are just extra precautions to make sure that there's no chance, to your knowledge, of bringing potential COVID to the event and to the customers. Next slide, please. This is a final thing, may not be necessary, but it was included in the template just to keep track of who's working there. So if you have different individuals working, you'll just want to try to keep a record of who is there. And this is really for contact tracing. If we do have an issue of any sort, we want to be able to know who is there and at what time. We will not be gathering this information from all attendees, but if you have multiple people working kind of in shifts at your booth, it's a good idea, just in case we need to track down anyone who was there during a certain period of time. Next slide. So again, that was the safety template. We'll send that out to you if you didn't receive it already, and we'll make it available on slcchamber.org on the event posting. So please just plan to do that and print it out. It's not a big deal, and have it on site with you. So there are a number of things that are going to look and feel a little bit different this year. As you all can imagine, life is not the same, but we really feel good about being able to have a nice event. And at this point, people are pretty comfortable with operating in this way. So obviously face masks will be worn at the market. We are doing admission and limiting capacity of attendees by parking. And so at that time, we will be kind of screening them, as well as making sure that they have masks. And if they do not, we will be providing them with them. So mask wearing is necessary, nose and mouth, not just mouth, and face shields are acceptable. You're not allowed to do cooking demonstrations or sampling from open containers. We are not going to have any food on site. That adds an additional element to all of this during COVID. So there won't be any food on site. So certainly plan to pack your snacks and lunch and things like that for yourself. And we will not be worrying about customers having any food or vendors having food like that. So be mindful of that. Some of these are recommendations. Really, a lot of these are recommendations. So you want to minimize the food customers may directly access and instead serve patrons. So that just means that essentially any time a customer might touch something, you want to limit that, and you want to put your customer service first and offer to serve them. So that's just be thinking with your booth setup and the type of products you're bringing that that's a really good recommendation. Next slide. It shows some examples. So these are just some examples we took from the Canton market that's been going very successfully. And also the Watertown market happens every Wednesday, and they have up to 1,200 people a week there. So it's a pretty large event, and so Kylie sent me some photos there to share with all of you. So these are just some examples of how you can serve customers. On the left, you have Julie from Bird's Foot has created this kind of screen over her products, and then filled in with some saran wrap there so that the customers aren't touching, but they can still see what they're looking at and ask, and then she can serve them. On the right-hand side, you'll see they have the products on a back table, and the customer asks for what they want. They do also have some in the front, and you as the vendor can serve them exactly what they want. Next slide. Some other things, these are some recommendations. You can set up display tables in a manner that allows for social distancing between consumers. So often at these shows, some people set up their booth to be a come inside experience, come into my shop experience, and you do that U shape so that people can come in and look. We are trying to do the opposite of that this year, because that is just funneling people into a close space, which is what we don't want to do. So if that's typically your layout, you might just want to rethink how you are setting up, do a reverse U, add additional tables or space to encourage distancing, and set up that way. And I have some photos to show you. You can also look at setting up a linear display so that, again, the front of your booth is where customers are coming, and then you have additional products in the back that you're bringing forward as requested. And that also allows you to have a couple different points of kind of lines or customer service. Again, this will be recorded, so you'll make it available. Just another highlight I made at the bottom. You want to try to reduce as much the customer's contact of their belongings onto your space, so to speak. And one option for that is just to cover your table with something that you'll be able to wipe off, so that if people do need to put down a reusable bag, for example, to fill it with corn or other products, you can easily wipe that down occasionally throughout the day. Next one. So these are just a couple of photos from the Watertown Market. So you can see they've got this really roped off so that customers are not coming inside, but they still have their beautiful display there with their products. And then they have an additional table that's kind of the serving table. And you can see there's space between the tables so they can come out and put the products, once they're ordered, onto that table from which the customer will take the product. But this really encourages that additional space. So this is an option. This is another to what I spoke to from the Watertown Market. She's got her beautiful display there, but then it looks like she's got a clear tablecloth on top of everything. So her typical display would not be something that could be wiped down easily. The clear tablecloth allows her to very easily sanitize that space throughout the show. Next. So sanitation procedures, certainly something you want to make sure you have to be able to frequently clean any surfaces where people are touching. Obviously, the more you can reduce what people are touching, the easier the cleaning goes. Making sure you have hand sanitizer on site. We will also have a lot of hand sanitizer on site in big jugs for people, as well as small handheld sprays. But you want to make sure you are sanitizing. One of the other options or recommendations is to pre-package your goods, whether that's agricultural items or other products. You can pre-package them, like you can pre-package them so that, again, people aren't touching it. It also reduces the amount of time that you or your staff are touching the products as well. So that's an option. If you're selling crafted items, homemade items that are non-food items, you could also have the item on display so that they can see it, and then have the ones that are for sale packaged in a Ziploc or something like that, ready to hand to the customer. That way they can still see the beautiful work, but the item that they actually purchase hasn't been exposed to a number of people. Yep, so these are a couple of examples. So on the left, you can see that's more of a crafter, kind of a creative design there, that they've got their items on a clothesline of sorts, which is interesting because it shows those items and they can literally pick the ones they want, but it also creates a bit of a shield as well. So that's nice. And then you can see on the left, they've got a display with the doll on the mini bean bag, but then they've got the bean bag chairs for sale already packaged. So that's just another way that you can do it. And then on the right, you can see a similar thing with vegetables. This is not required. This is an option. It might make it easier for you and make you more comfortable and might encourage customers, but it really depends on the type of products you have and the type of operation you have. Next. Payment procedures, that's another big piece, obviously. We want to have a lot of transactions on September 26th. And so if you have Wi-Fi we will have Wi-Fi if you're doing Square processing, then that's a pretty touchless experience. You want to make sure if you're wearing gloves while you're handling cards or just turn it in such a way that the customer just slides their card and so you're not touching their card at all. And then if you want, you can forego the signature, and so there's really no touching involved at all. The customer is swiping or inserting, taking their own card back, and that is it. You're the only one who's touching your phone to make that transaction. So that again is a recommendation, may or may not work for you. If you're dealing only with cash or with cash additionally, you want to calculate your products ahead of time to include tax so that it is a flat rate. I know some of you already do this, just makes it easier, but that may be something you want to look at even more so for this event. And you can also create, and I have a picture next, but you can create a new cash basket of sorts so that when a customer pays the $10, you have that bucket or that basket that they put that money in. And then if you're giving change, you take that out of a separate, your separate register, so that you're not going to have the ability, unless you have good technology, to be cleaning cash between transactions. So that's one of the recommendations, again, to have a kind of a cash in and then a clean cash out that you can stock up ahead of time at the bank. And if you need to make change, you need to make change. Again, this is a recommendation, but just another way to reduce touching in that way. Methods of avoiding congregation. Again, I talked a little bit about your layout and having multiple areas where people can come up to the counter so that they're not crowding there, but they're kind of forming lines. The format of the event will really spread people apart. As we said, there'll be 10 feet between booths. There's a lot of space there, and so there will be directional opportunity, and as people arrive, we'll be sending them in kind of two different areas to make their way through to manage that crowding. So but anything that you can do in that way, again, kind of creating separate lines, is ideal. There will not be eating areas or picnic areas. We're really not trying to encourage people to do that. If they want to sit down on the grass somewhere, that's fine, but we won't be encouraging that at all. Next. This is an example, again, of Julie at Berthsfoot, the Canton Market. So she's got just a Tupperware bucket there with a bag inside. And so when someone pays her $5 for lettuce, it goes in there. If they pay her $10, the $10 goes in there, and she's got her cash drawer right there that she would give the $5 back. So again, that keeps kind of the new cash there and the additional cash in your drawer. Again, this is just a recommendation. If you are handling cash, you want to be wearing gloves and then removing those gloves between the time you're touching money and touching your products, and certainly be sanitizing between those if you're not wearing gloves. So that is an option. Obviously, that would require quite a bit more cash in your drawer. So you might want to prepare for that with the bank, or start putting that away and kind of quarantining that money ahead of the event. Next slide. So we will obviously have a number of different communication pieces in play at the event. We will have a lot of volunteers and signage throughout the event. We will have a booth set up for the chamber so that if anybody has any questions or issues, they can contact us. We will have additional supplies there as well. And we will continue to keep in touch with you via email and communicate with the visitors by social media as well. So these are just some of the signs that I believe are from the New York Federation of Markets. Again, just some kind of fun signs that we'll have a number of these copied and laminated so that they can be put around the market. We'll also have the triangle signs throughout the market as well, reminding people to wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart and let vendors serve you, that sort of thing. So although we are encouraging these things, we certainly want you to be prepared as a vendor to serve within these guidelines so that it's very easy for people to say, oh, I don't have to touch it. I can just point and say, you know, I'd like that, I'd like those chocolates and I'd like that handmade bag or whatever the case may be. And they just won't be touching as much. And I would say, again, hand sanitizer will be available if you have something at your booth that you want people to be touching. I would advise you to have sanitizer available there. If they sanitize before they feel something, then in theory, the germs have been taken off of their skin before they go to touch your product. So that is also an option if you do have an item that people need to try on or to touch and feel, then that's a really good option for that. Next slide. So just some of the things that I've talked about that you might want to prepare for that I think, well, somewhat are part of your typical supply box, but certainly want to bring hand sanitizer, probably a small garbage bag for your gloves or the items that you're wiping down. So if you're bringing paper towels or sanitizing wipes, you want to just have a garbage at your booth. We will have garbage cans as well that you can dump into, but you might want one right there. Gloves, you want to bring several sets of gloves, the disinfectant and wipes and towels. You may want, as we showed in the image there, you may want to bring extra tables, or they might be the tables you bring typically. You might just set them up in a different way so that there's the distance of kind of the service table versus your display tables. Mask, and maybe bring multiple masks just in case. Certainly make sure if you have helpers that they have masks. Signs, again, we are going to provide some of those, but if there are any particular instructions for your booth, it would be a good idea to create signs and either have them laminated and stuck to your booth or in picture frames or something like that, so that people clearly understand they're allowed to touch, but please sanitize first. Or, you know, I'm here to help. Let me know what you want. You know, you can spin it in a nice way so that people understand how to interact and feel welcome to experience your booth. The splash guard or splash display is kind of like I showed you in the beginning with Julie, of you may want to, again, it's up to you. Not everyone does this and you don't have to, but to have some sort of guard over your items. I've also seen people just simply get a clear tablecloth and put that over the items, and then you as the vendor can just pick up and take the items from there. So there are a lot of ways that you can do that, but you might want to start looking for those supplies now and stocking up. We also would encourage you, if you have items that could be of interest to retail stores, that you think about what costs might be to sell things wholesale. We recognize that this show might be the only one before Christmas. The Remington Arts Festival will be happening the next weekend, so that's an artisan show. But we don't anticipate there to be, our Christmas market or Taste and Talents. Those events will not likely happen before Christmas. And so, one, we're encouraging people to bring their wagons, fill up, and really shop till they drop. But the other thing is that there may be opportunities for you to sell your products to retail shops that are open or have online shops that maybe you didn't have before. So that simply would be a sheet that says, essentially, this is what you wholesale for at this cost, and this is what the retail is, and what the, your contact information, minimum orders, lead time, anything like that. So that if you do have anyone who says, oh, I'd love to sell these at my store, you're ready to give that opportunity. And we will be working with some wholesale opportunities to try to encourage retailers to attend as well, so that this will be an additional opportunity. Next. Just some resources that are available locally to help you. Garden Share supports the local markets around the county, and so they have a lot of experience working with vendors this summer, so they can give you some advice, I'm sure. And then at Cornell Cooperative Extension, there are two really good resources. Flip Filippi runs the Harvest Kitchen, and so she can assist with some business planning, but also potentially packaging and things like that if you're looking at doing things differently. And that could be for the show, or if you as a business are finding that the markets are not available to you and you need to start looking at more shelf preserving your items and getting them to market through retailers. Flip's a great resource for that. So that's kind of separate. And then Kelsey O'Shea at Cornell Cooperative has been working with producers and farm-based businesses on their safety plans. Again, the safety plan sample that we provided is very, very simple. You literally just customize it and print and file it, and it should be good to go. But if you need extra help, she's there. And then the SUNY Canton SBDC is also a great resource for anything business related. If you want to just brainstorm, or if you need help looking at the costs, if your costs have changed with how things are now, or if you want help marketing or anything like that, or working on wholesale, they can help you with that. So that is it. Yep, that's right, Maggie, you can go to that end. So that's us. Again, this is Brooke from the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. We are here to help. If you have any questions leading up to the event, we'll continue to be in communication, but if you want to just bounce ideas, you can feel free to do that with us or any of the others listed on that resource guide. So I'd like to take this time now to open it up to questions. You can type them into the chat, or if you want, you can unmute yourself and ask your question or share any recommendations as well. I'm sure you all have been thinking about this a bit.
I'll ask my question. Hi, I have been trying to get in touch with public health to find out what exactly I need to submit to them. I know you said that you were submitting various, the templates that you had on there and stuff like that. Who is the actual person to contact at public health, and how do you get in touch with them? Because I've called and left messages and nobody's called me back.
Yeah, so for putting on an event right now, the guidelines are provided through Ag and Markets. I ran it by the county. It's not really required to do so, but I just wanted to do that just to make sure they knew that we were offering that opportunity. And that we're hosting that opportunity. But I can share with you the guidelines and the contacts that I had at Department of Health and Ag and Markets. This all goes within Ag and Markets because we're not getting involved with food. So that does make that a little bit easier. So there's a question if we're offering rented tables and chairs. We were planning to not do that, but we can look into that if there's an interest. So if you would like to have tables and chairs delivered, please get in touch with us about that. We were planning to not do it, but we can certainly consider that. So there's a question. I realize that we will be 10 feet apart. Are we permitted to set up extra tables in the space between vendors, or are we still limited to our 10 by 10 space? I think there will be a lot of space available. And so I would say that typically the additional tables would be out front. So I just think the layout's going to be very different. So I would say that the additional tables would probably be out front. So I'm just trying to visualize it a little bit. I do think that you'll be fitting pretty much within that 10 by 10 space, but there won't be anyone behind you. So you'll have a lot of space in the back. So I guess what I'm saying is there'll be a little bit more depth versus width, if that makes sense. Feel free to clarify or ask us. Okay. Yeah, and Joanne was just mentioning that potentially with Hurlbutts, we could provide their contact information and have them do the drop off and assist with that, but have people reserve those individually. They also have small tents if people are interested in that. If it is a rainy day, can we use plastic bags? Is that plastic bags for your items? Because I think we are in New York back to only reusable bags. Yes, for items. We are going to be encouraging people to bring their own bags and to bring wagons, literally, because it'll be spaced out quite a bit and we do want people to stock up. So we will be encouraging them to bring those, but I would say if you want to bring plastic bags, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Yeah, or you could have reusable bags for people to purchase as another option. So there's a question about this year's show and only providing the opportunity to St. Lawrence County vendors only. So a couple of reasons for doing that. One, the main reason is that although we have members from multiple states, multiple counties across the state, we really feel at this time it's important to give as much opportunity to businesses in St. Lawrence County as we can. A lot of other areas of the state have had really good summer tourism seasons, and ours has been good in some parts, but still limited. And so we've made that decision to make sure that our St. Lawrence County vendors have the priority for this opportunity. And that is not Ag and Markets, that is specifically our decision this year. Any other questions, comments, or if you're kind of having thoughts about anything that we shared, if you want to talk about it and get any other ideas from anyone else on today, now's a good opportunity for that too. Any other questions? We are not full yet. There's still a number of spaces available. We continue to get registrations in by the minute. Several people who are typically there are not coming, whether it's because they're from out of the county or some have decided not to come because it's just a one-day show, or they're not available that date because it is a different date from the original October date, or they're just not comfortable doing it. So we're getting updates from those people, and we're getting a lot of new vendors interested as well. So certainly if you know anybody who's interested, you can send them over to the the posting. It's on slcchamber.org in the event. The registration form is right there. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you will join us on September 26th. And as we said, there are a number of guidelines here. A lot of them are recommendations, hopefully to help you prepare and think about how you're going to serve your customers. But we really wanted to push to make this happen. We recognize that all of you have had limited to no exposure this summer, and wanted to make this available in a safe way, and want you to be successful. And we hope you will help us spread the word. We've got the Facebook event up and live, so please, if you can invite people and share to your page, and let people know, however you do that, that would be good. We want people to save the date and plan for it and come out and support all of you. So if we have no more questions, we can close up. Again, this will be recorded, and it is recorded, and I will make it available. And if you would like to share it with anyone or review it, you can do that.